One is the process I use to create photographs, the visualization process. One is what I strive to communicate to the viewer. And another is some of my field experiences, things that I've experienced while out in the field photographing. When I was a kid, I was a springboard diver, and my diving coach and diving teacher always had me visualize myself doing the dive before I actually got on the diving board and did my dives. And that was from the approach to the end of the diving board, the takeoff from the board, the execution in the air, and the entry into the water. I visualized myself doing the dive the whole time. And I do my art the same way. When I have an idea of what I want to do, I visualize what I want the end product to look like before I even begin. And that helps me along the way make decisions that are based on what I want my art to look like when it's finished. I also studied studio portraits of people because I kind of wanted to do portraits of birds, but it's a little different doing a portrait of a bird because in a studio you've got a controlled environment, you can control everything in a photography studio. But you can't do that out in the field with birds because they don't cooperate. And the minute I move a little bit closer or make a tiny amount of noise, they're out of there. They fly away. It's like, oh great, I just sat here for 3 hours waiting for this bird to land, and I made a little bit of a movement and he went away. And he may come back and he may not. I also thought that I wanted to try to isolate my birds from busy backgrounds because I wanted the subject to be the bird. And I kind of wanted to portray my feeling of what that bird's character is, personality. And I know that's strange talking about birds, but that's kind of what I wanted to portray with my artwork. What I'm striving to try to communicate with the viewer is that I want the viewer to see wading birds that I've seen in Louisiana, but through my eyes, through the way I see these birds. My work has always been about light. As some of you know, I started out with stained glass as my medium, but I've done painting, mosaics, glass sculpture, as well as photography. But for me, light is always the most important thing about my work. 3 or 4 years ago, I did a series called Out of the Darkness into the Light, and I've thought about it a lot, and I've realized that this kind of describes what I'm trying to portray with my artwork. Coming out of a darker space into a light space. And that thread has pretty much run through my work for years. As well as water, I feel like I always have photographed or portrayed my work with water in it. Even if you don't see water, some of the trees, they're standing in the water. These birds are all wading birds, and so I feel like water, again, is a universal archetypal symbol that I use in my artwork. I also wanted my photographs to be a little bit impressionistic, not like, and I know this is going to sound weird, but not like a straight photograph, but more like someone had run a light brush across the photograph to give it a little bit of impressionistic feel, a little softer feel than too hard-edged. Some of my field experiences, I spent I had a show last year, and after the show last year, I started going out into the field again to photograph as many wading birds as I could find. And I went to the LSU lakes a lot to practice shooting at nighttime, to see how much I could push the limits of my camera to photograph in the dark. I usually would go to those trees where all the white birds land at nighttime, and then there's another tree next to it where all the blackbirds land. And I would go there and practice photographing these white birds landing in the trees with really super low light to see how far I could push my camera and to see what settings I could push to be able to keep the photograph intact without it totally falling apart. So I did this a lot. Some of the challenges I've had photographing are birds are unpredictable. You go there one day and they're all there. You drive 3 hours again, there's no bird there. And you've driven there for 3 hours for I don't know what. Maybe, just kind of wait, but sometimes if they're not there, they don't come back for days, or if at all. The weather can be unpredictable. I drove down to Grand Isle, and it rained one day, and the next day it was supposed to be sunny, and the roads are still flooded, so you can't drive around too easily. I went over to Elmer's Island and drove on a wet beach as far as they would let cars drive, and then I loaded all my junk up into a wagon and pulled it another mile or so. And I was in search of reddish egret, which is this bird, because I don't see them very much, and I'm fascinated with them. I think they're beautiful birds, and when they're fishing especially, their hair gets all messed up, and they've got this kind of hair is also on their chest, and it gets all messy too. But anyway, I drove to Elmer's Island. There's a reddish egret out in the water. I couldn't believe it because I don't see them very much. Well, the minute I saw him, a big old bolt of lightning starts and thunder. So, I said, am I going to stay here and maybe get hit by electricity or by lightning, or am I going to load up and go back to my car? And I loaded up and hauled myself back to my car. But I mean, it's that kind of frustration with the weather being unpredictable. Sometimes at Jefferson Island, I go there for 2 or 3 days at a time, and I'll sit in a chair and wait, and then all of a sudden rainstorms come, and you got to run to your car with all your camera equipment, then you get back out, and then go back. And we've been having such crazy weather in South Louisiana that it's been hard for me to judge what the weather's going to be like. Also, when I photograph at daybreak, a challenge is to get as much as I can done before the sun reaches a 30-degree angle to the horizon, because once it hits that 30-degree angle, the shadows become really, really harsh, and you don't get that soft, nice lighting. And if I don't have my act together and I'm fiddling around, I'll miss my golden time to photograph. And so I really have to be extremely organized when I do go out in the early mornings. Sometimes I stand for hours behind the tripod, especially if it's a cloudy day, and I've got that nice soft light all day. And sometimes I really forget what time it is. I mean, I remember I was at Lake Martin one time, and I got there at daybreak, and I'm photographing. All of a sudden the phone rings, and it's my husband Taylor. He said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm at Lake Morton." He said, "Well, it's 7 o'clock at night." I said, "Well, I lost track of time, and I really do lose track of time when I'm photographing."
So is the black, that's actual in the photographs, like the black backgrounds, or are you doing that after?
There are a lot of times, the first photo, if you see the one, that very first photo, sometimes there's some dark vegetation in the scene, and sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's a muddy brown vegetation, but I try to position myself so there's as much density behind the bird as possible, so I can separate that bird from its background. I try to do dark backgrounds because I think that moves the bird closer to the picture plane. And a dark background, when I taught color theory, I taught Joseph Albert's interaction of color. And one thing about a dark color adjacent to any color, a dark adjacent to any color, is dark will make that color appear lighter and brighter. And since I was photographing a lot of darkish birds, I know I didn't want them to look any darker. So the only way I could make them look lighter is by pushing the background farther away from them visually, and also through interaction of color. Because the dark background will cause colors to look brighter and lighter.
So how does rich blacks, when they're put on canvas, are they using what is basic archival ink? It almost looks like it's sprayed, like it's paint.
It's an archival ink. It's the same ink that they use when I do my photos on rag paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same, but on canvas, which these are all printed on canvas, they have to use a special canvas for a lot of black that's different from canvas that they use where there's more light colors. It absorbs the black differently because black is sort of a tough thing to use. Yeah. Sometimes it can streak, and so they have to order a special canvas to print with a lot of black.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's it looks thicker than most of the black I see like on, well, even archival rag paper. Yeah.
Mhm.
But on a photographic paper, I don't know, even the darkest black looks thinner than this black.
Yeah.
Look, it's got some rich depth to it.
Well, that's what I had asked for, because I wanted the black to be black as possible.
Uh-huh.
And so they had to get special canvas to do that with. Okay.
Okay, the light on the red, red. That light around the 6 foot is almost like a ballerina spotlight. You
That
know?
was the amazing
And
thing.
that was there?
Yes, it was early in the morning, and I looked at my photograph, and he was kind of surrounded with an aura of light. It's just the way the sun or the whatever, the light, I use whatever ambient light I can get. Sometimes if the sun's not up, there'll be the moon. If the moon's out, it can cause ambient light too. And it was kind of amazing because the reflection under him, it's almost like he was, I don't know, angelic or something. It was just so odd. Hey, Al.
So how about roughly in that bird there, how close were you to the bird?
Oh, man.
Were you using a long lens or?
You know, I was either using a 200 or a 400 millimeter lens. I don't remember which one. But at one point, I think he might have been as close as we were. And that's what a lot of the photographers tell me. They say, don't invest in all these long lenses, just use your legs as your zoom. But I mean, it's easier said than done because I'm not going to walk out in Lake Martin with those alligators. But some photographers do. Some photographers go out into the lake.
And you were not in a blind or anything, you were
No.
you were there. with your
Just
tripod.
there.
And when, I know it's going to be variable, but you must push the ISO very, very high in some of these. Like, what range are we talking about?
Well, 3200 is high for me, for my camera. It'll go higher than that, but then you're just going to have so much horrible grain. But these days, you can remove the grain too. Cameras are getting more and more sophisticated. And so, yeah, but I can't go too much. 3200's pushing it for me, for ISO.